wanted to spend a weekend with my best friend and ignored my hubby's warning. Then this happened. I learned that having a best boyfriend together with a husband isn't going to work the hard way. Here we go. Before I start my very crazy life story, I'm Anna, 25 years old and engaged to Thomas. He's 26 years old and the love of my life. We've been together for 3 amazing years and now we are starting to plan our wedding. I couldn't be happier. We met during college because of our friends who are a big part of our life, since we all hung out back then and still are in each other's lives. We met during a party and started to go out every week and almost every day. We couldn't be away from each other because we both lived in the campus dorm, so we were always a few steps from each other. I finally found love when I found Thomas. I had just a few lame and not even considerable dates before, and none of them were like him. He swept me off my feet from the moment we met. I'm very happy and proud of our story together. Thomas proposed to me in a Tame Impala concert, quite literally, because it was just like our first date. 1 week after the party we met, Thomas showed up with the tickets and asked me if I wanted to join him. Their songs were perfect for a first date and even more for a proposal. It was an indescribable experience, and I absolutely loved his idea of proposal. My friends always got along with my boyfriend, actually fiancé, but we have problems with this term, so usually I just call him my boyfriend or even husband since we are almost there. We always have fun with his friends and my friends, but there are a few of them who are even more special to us. Thomas has the same best friends ever since kindergarten, Kevin and Jess. The last one is a girl who made me at first insecure about dating Thomas, until Jess revealed to me she is a lesbian. I love her like she's my own family. After Thomas and I get married, she'll be kind of a sister-in-law to me. He doesn't have any siblings, so Kevin and Jess are actually family to him. Both of them were always very supportive of my relationship with their best friend. They always say how happy I make Thomas and how much I changed his life. I also have my own future bridesmaid, Kiara. We met in our second year of high school. She was a new exchange student from Italy. We started talking already in her first days in New York, and we never stopped. Eventually, she started officially living here, then we decided to go to the same college. It was our teenage dream, and we achieved it. We've been inseparable best friends for 10 years, and she is one of the most important aspects of my life. Kevin, Jess, and Kiara are always around in our apartment. Sometimes we hang out all together, but mostly Kiara and I go out, while Thomas hangs out with his friends at home because they don't like to go out much. Thomas and I are very welcoming and love having people in our house, so we like seeing them there during the weekends. When we started dating, we used to go out all the time. Thomas and I went to concerts, parties, events, plays, art galleries, and everything else New York could offer us. We got a little lazy and stopped going out as much as we used to. Thomas likes to hang out with his friends at home or their go-to bar, which leaves me alone hanging out with Kiara. But between the fashion events and artsy parties she takes me, there aren't many threats to Thomas thinking I was cheating on him. He's been in these places and knows the public are mostly women and gay men. We trust each other and aren't really jealous since we usually hang out with the same people. There aren't many problems. It seems like on a random Saturday night someone decided to grow non-existent problems in my life. Everything was fine. Thomas and I were slowly planning our wedding, having no stress while doing it. We loved being around each other and weren't fighting. Our life was amazing, but on this specific day the tables turned and things started to go wrong. Starting from that Saturday morning, I had breakfast with Kiara at a place we always went to on the weekends. Usually on this day, I get up after Thomas is already gone. On Saturday mornings, he gives theater classes. If not, then he's rehearsing for a play. He's a great actor and absolutely in love with theater. After we ate, Kiara and I went back to my apartment. She was telling me about this event in Miami. It was a fashion show one of her clients invited her to go to. She works in a public relations company, so we were used to going to this kind of thing. They rarely were outside of our city, but this one apparently was special. Kiara invited me to go with her. She could bring someone else and thought we could have a good time. It was only for a weekend, but there were many things we could do in Miami since the event was only on Saturday night and we'd be free for the rest of the weekend. When I got home, I sat down to check my schedule if I could reorganize work and travel. I loved her idea and really wanted some time off work. We were talking about the trip in my living room when Jess called me saying she was there to drop some things. I got up to open for her and Kiara started getting ready to leave. I asked if she wanted to have lunch with us and Thomas. She said she was busy, but she'd come at night for us to get out. That's when our conversation got weird. I did my best to remember. It was kind of like, actually, Jess is going to cook here because Kevin's master's finally ended and they want to celebrate it, I said, and she replied with her kind of faded but still recognizable accent. Sure, do you want to come over at mine then? There's a great restaurant I want us to try. She reacted weirdly when I told her I wanted to stay here and celebrate with them. I even invited her and she just said, "Fine, I'll come." I heard my bell and opened for Jess. Kiara went home immediately after saying hi. I still had a confused expression about how she reacted. Jess asked me about it and I saw no problem sharing our conversation with her. She put the bag she was holding in the kitchen and I followed her while talking. I don't know why she doesn't want to do anything with anyone. It seems like it's a big deal for her to be here when she already knows you guys and interacted with you many times. You could smell my frustration in the air. Like she was happy talking to me about our trip to Miami and suddenly she wanted to leave. "Wait, you're traveling together?" Jess asked mischievously. I explained to her about the trip and she kept her weird expression on. Maybe she doesn't like Thomas because she was always very nice to me. Why wouldn't she like him? She was very happy when I told her we were engaged. Jess laughed at what I said. It's like she knew something I didn't. I'm sure it's fine. Best friends are usually protective. I guess she is just a little jealous. I reflected about what Jess said, but it didn't make sense to me. Kiara was complicated. There was no reason for me to overthink something about her, because in the end it would be something different from what I theorized, so I just let it go. Eventually Thomas got home, we got lunch with Jess and started organizing Kevin's party. It was kind of a surprise, which we were hoping he'd love. Jess was still cooking. We still had 2 hours until the time we told our friends to come. Thomas and I got the car key to go buy wine and other drinks. We left that task to the last minute, but at least it was the only thing we had to do before getting ready. We were talking about random subjects in the car. Thomas was excited to see Kevin's reaction. He was very proud of his friend's accomplishment. While we were leaving the car and walking towards the store, Thomas asked me about Kiara. I had already told him about the trip, which he didn't think was a big deal at first, but something started to bother him. Jess said she didn't want to come today. She doesn't really like to hang out with us. She always wants to take you out and all. Do you think that maybe there's something going on? I didn't really understand what he was saying, and he was hesitant to say it. He told me he thought Kiara had a crush on me. Jess apparently suggested that, and he thought it made sense. I told him it was clearly a crazy idea. Well, Jess is a lesbian. It's not that hard for her to interpret if it's only a friendship or a crush. Either way is just her opinion. I wanted to get mad and say Jess was crazy, but it was a good hypothesis. I couldn't help to consider it. At the same time, it didn't make sense. I knew Kiara had been with girls before, but it wasn't something so common, and when I talked to her, I tested saying something about Thomas to see how she'd react. She answered normally and even kept the conversation going. I had no idea what else to think. I was almost sure Thomas and Jess were imagining stuff, but I still had my doubts. Because of that, when I was leaving work, I texted Jess and asked if she wanted to have coffee with me. Since Thomas put her as such an authority about women and lesbians, I decided to talk to her about it. I told her the same things I said to Thomas in the grocery store. Jess tried not to laugh ironically while I was talking about Kiara. Every time she did, it was like she was thinking I was stupid for not realizing it. I guess she was kind of thinking that. Look, Anna, women flirt with women differently than women flirt with men. You're not used to that, but there are signs that are very clear to us. I know Kiara is from a different country and all, but I don't think the way she looks at you is influenced by Italian culture. Obviously, I could be crazy and wrong, but we'll know as soon as you travel together because you'll be alone and with no boyfriend. Jess started to scare me. Maybe I was listening to her too much. You can't possibly think she's trying anything there. She knows I love Thomas. Why would I want to cheat on him with her? I could show how frustrated I was through the way I breathed. Jess then said something which could actually be true. If she in fact likes you, she could try something or not try, because there's the fear of being rejected and all. If she doesn't try anything, then you know she doesn't like you, or at least that she respects your relationship enough to not hit on you while your fiancé waits in another city. I acknowledged it and said I wasn't going to listen to her, and Thomas's paranoia. It was starting to freak me out. Kiara was my best friend for 10 years. I'm sure she wouldn't do anything to negatively affect my life. I wasn't listening to my delusional boyfriend and his best friend. If she in fact tried to kiss me or whatever, I would tell her we couldn't be friends if she kept liking me or anything else like that. The day of our trip came, Thomas drove Kiara and I to the airport. Happily, they were kind of friends again and kept many conversations going. It was a relief and at least made Thomas a little less worried. God, I never thought I'd be in that kind of situation, especially with my fiancé and my best friend. Thomas got our bags and walked in the airport with us. When it was time for us to officially walk the gates he wouldn't have access to, so we had to say goodbye to each other. While we were hugging, he whispered, "Be careful." In my ear, he was talking about the traveling dangers and apparently the one who was right in front of us. I smiled and nodded at him. Then we walked away to wait for our flight. I spent the entire flight talking about wedding plans with Kiara and asking for opinions. She was so thoughtful and dedicated to help me make the best decisions about venues, cakes, and decorations. She had the greatest sense of style I knew, and most of our wedding plans were finished with her help. I stopped worrying after the flight. I was suspecting my best friend for nothing while she was helping me plan one of the happiest days of my life. We got to Miami on a Friday afternoon. Our schedule was filled with places we wanted to visit and stores to buy the perfect outfits for the fashion show on Saturday. We had done that in New York too, but maybe there was something in Miami we could add in style. It was a fashion show and we took fashion very seriously. We needed to make things perfect. We spent the entire afternoon walking around Miami. Kiara had a friend who lived there and they promised to have a party while she was there, so those were our plans for Friday night. I'm sure you're probably wondering, yes, we were staying in the same room, but it was with 2 queen-size beds. As soon as we got ready, we had dinner at the hotel and went to her friend's party. We only returned to the hotel 5 hours later. It was a long party. As true New Yorkers, only I was, we had cosmopolitans almost all night long. We were having a lot of fun. Everyone who was there would totally be in the places we go out to in New York, but in a Miami version. Some people came on to Kiara, but she just rejected them. I told her it was fine if she wanted to disappear with someone for a few minutes. I was already finding myself there and even made new friends, but she said she wasn't in the mood to hook up with anyone. 2 guys hit it on me, but showing the ring on my finger was enough to keep them away. We got to the hotel around 2 in the morning, still a little drunk, but we were careful about the drinking, considering we didn't want to be hungover the next day. I left the bathroom ready to get in bed. Kiara was organizing some things in her bag. When I showed up, she started staring at me, kind of intensely. She asked if I liked the party, so we started talking about the people we met, the food, drinks, and everything. She sat on my bed while we talked and didn't take her eyes off me for a second. I started feeling scared again. Maybe she was interested in me. She could be just drunk. At least I hoped it was just that. We were in silence for a while, then she asked me, I told Kiara about what Thomas and Jess were theorizing. She laughed about it and then said, as long as we hide it well, especially from Jess, there's no problem. I kept thinking about what she said. Was I having an affair? Was it a one-time thing we wouldn't tell anyone? These thoughts lasted until she got up to go to the plane's bathroom and told me to wait a little, then follow her. I did, of course I followed her. It felt so good I couldn't just say no to it. She was so much better at it than Thomas. I felt bad thinking that. It could be just because she's a woman, but what Thomas took 1 hour to accomplish, she did it in 20 minutes without much effort. I felt terrible, but I was so inconsequential I couldn't think about what could go wrong. When we landed, I told Kiara we could never do that again. I'd tell Thomas he was wrong about her having a crush on me. We'd pretend it never happened, and I would keep my almost marriage safe and sound. I invented and rehearsed a whole story to tell Thomas and Jess. I told them she didn't try anything with me and even spent the nights away with someone she hooked up with. Thomas felt relieved, and Jess believed me too. I was grateful they fell for it, and I could forget this trip ever happened. Things came back to normal in a couple of weeks. We already had a date set for the wedding, and Thomas seemed more excited than me. But one day I went to Kiara's apartment to help her paint her living room and unfortunately fell on her spell again, not just once. I fell for her on the plastic covers in the living room, in her bedroom and bathroom. I knew I'd feel terrible later, but I simply couldn't get off her. It felt like I spent my entire life drinking cheap coffee. Now I had tried good and expensive coffee and couldn't stop drinking it. The worst part is that at that moment I couldn't even taste the cheap coffee without remembering how amazing the other one was. It's horrible to compare my almost husband to cheap coffee, but I couldn't feel with him the same I used to before. After that day, my affair with Kiara started going on frequently. We had to be extremely careful and only did things in her apartment. We didn't want anyone to suspect, so on those days Kevin and Jess hung out with Thomas at our house. We'd tell them we're going to dinner and instead went to Kiara's apartment. Jess was the most dangerous part. If she noticed a little thing changed since the trip, she'd tell Thomas and he would start thinking about it again. I also told Kiara she needed to be nicer to Thomas, that way he would actually believe nothing happened in Miami. We had a plan and it worked for a few months. To this day, he doesn't know. I'm writing this here because a new problem came up in my life. I feel guilty, terribly guilty. I literally developed a stress ulcer because I feel anxious every time I'm with Thomas. The closest we are to our wedding day, my stomach hurts even more and my anxiety terrorizes me. I know I should stop doing this to Thomas, but I don't have the courage to tell him, and neither the strength to get Kiara out of my life. She's like a witch who put a spell on me. I know how much it's going to hurt him if I tell him, and every time I try, it simply doesn't come out. I'm writing this a month before the day of our wedding. Everything is paid for and organized. All we have to do is get married, or not if I tell him. I don't know what to do. I don't think posting my situation on Reddit will help, probably not. But I needed to get this out of me. Do you have any idea of how I can tell him? Should I? I love him to the fullest, even after what happened with Kiara. Getting married to him was a dream. And if I could ignore all the symptoms of cheating my body is expressing, I would. Update. Hello. It has been a while since I made this post. I'm finally back with updates. It has been a month and a half since I posted here, and there are many things to update you on. Until the day of our wedding, I hadn't told Thomas about the affair. We woke up in the morning of what would be the best day of our lives, and things started falling apart. I woke up feeling pain from the ulcer I was still struggling to heal, but Thomas was cute enough to make me a cup of tea. I went to the bathroom to do my morning skincare, which I sometimes neglected, but it was my wedding day, so I had to. While I analyzed myself in the mirror, I noticed a shiny thing on the top of my head. I got closer and started going through my hair with my hands, when I saw the most terrifying thing possible. I screamed immediately when I noticed it. I heard Thomas coming to the bedroom running and asking me what was wrong. When I saw him, I broke down in tears and sat on the toilet. He sat on his knees in front of me and asked me what happened. I have a gray hair, I said, and went back to crying. Hey baby, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Hearing him being cute about it made me want to run away and cry forever. I'm only 25. I answered him in a tremulous voice. It's fine, love. You've been really stressed lately. Gray hair is kind of a side effect. I felt nauseous hearing what he said. I cheated on him, got a new health condition, and I was growing gray hair because of stress. Not to mention it was my wedding day, so things just couldn't be worse. Thomas tried comforting me, and I pretended it was fine. I just needed to get away from there. We spent the rest of the day apart getting ready. He stayed at our apartment with his friends while I went to Kiara's to get ready. Ironically, even my wedding dress was there. When I got there, I sat down and let her check my hair for other gray ones while she comforted me. You have to know how to deal with this. It's our little secret. You live your happy marriage while I make you physically happy every once in a while. It's fine. It's not fine. My soul and my body are rotting because of what we're doing. I can't start a marriage with this big fat lie on my shoulders. I complained, getting even more anxious with time. Kiara sighed and reminded me again. You said many times you love him and don't want to break up, then be a little selfish and do what's best for you. You ignored me all the times I told you to tell him the truth. Now it's too late. Are you actually fine with me getting married today? I asked, a little offended, to which she answered, I've been hearing about it ever since you started dating. Is there anything else I should be doing? She was right. I got her involved in this wedding and marriage in the first place. I actually felt like I might throw up. When I was finally ready, I looked at myself in the mirror and felt disgusted. It was better for me to forget I was in a wedding dress. We got everything we needed and went to the church where we would get married, a great place to go with the guilt I was carrying. Thomas's parents are religious, and they really wanted us to get married there. When I got there, they sent me to the back of the church where the bride's room was. There was another mirror there, and I couldn't recognize myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I heard a knock on the door and heard a familiar voice. Babe, it's me. I opened for Thomas without hesitating. He helped me pick my dress because we didn't believe in superstitions. Is Kiara here? I need to talk to you. I told him she went to look for water and the powder she forgot in the car. Are you okay? He asked, seeming more anxious than me. I looked at him with an anguished look on my face and asked him what he wanted. He breathed, looked around, and threw the bullet at me. You're cheating on me, aren't you? I felt like passing out in that moment. I gagged and asked him why he thought that. You've been having a lot of stress issues, like very bad ones. Every time you look at me, it's like you're saying, I'm sorry with your eyes. I know you, Anna. Something is wrong. I fell on my knees and started crying in front of him. He kept looking at me and standing there. I'm sorry, Thomas. I should have told you. I'm so sorry. That was the only thing I could say between the tears. With who? He asked. And when I said her name, I could see the love he had for me turn into hate in just seconds. I noticed he started to cry. This was a mistake. I'm leaving. He walked out the door, leaving me there to drown in my own tears and guilt. I sat there for a couple of minutes until Kiara showed up, saying she would powder me quickly and get me to the front of the church. She immediately got quiet when she realized what was happening. He knows, she asked, and I nodded. That's how my love story with Thomas ended, with a church full of guests and disappointed parents. I don't know how because I was being taken home by Kiara while I sobbed in her car, but someone had to tell the guests the wedding was off. I only went home 3 days later. When I got there, I found my car literally burned in an empty lot in front of our building. Thomas destroyed my car and wrote a short note with a lot of cursing, which he left in the living room next to all of the wedding gifts we had sort of received. His stuff was gone. It was like he never existed, but there were a lot of reminders that he did. Everyone here told me to skip him the embarrassment, but I didn't. I was weak. I cheated on the most perfect man I had ever met, and I deserved my car turned into ashes. God, how did I lose myself so easily and do something I always condemned? My life is ruined. Everyone in my life knows that somehow we decided on the day of our wedding to not do it anymore. It is embarrassing. Please take this story into consideration the next time you desire someone who isn't the person you're in a relationship with. I have nothing else to say except how much I missed the time when I wasn't a cheater, but instead a good girlfriend.